Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí, creator of The Art of Freedom for Conscious Living and Masterful Artistry. I'm a professional violinist and a certified Alexander technique teacher, specializing in helping musicians of all kinds to play with more ease, effortlessness, joy, and less pain, performance anxiety, and overall tension and stress. So in this video, I'm going to teach you something called TheCyCle. TheCyCle is a Primal Alexander Awareness Etude developed by Mio Morales, creator of Primal Alexander. Primal Alexander is the hands-free method of teaching the Alexander technique that I have trained in for more than twice as long as my hands-on training. It's an amazing way to learn the Alexander technique, which really goes back to the origins of what Alexander did for himself to solve his performance issues. TheCyCle, as I said, is the very first Primal Alexander Awareness Etude. And it's very simple. It only takes a couple of minutes, 3 minutes maximum, sometimes even quicker than 2 minutes once you learn it. And here's what it involves. We're going to do something called constructive thinking. Constructive thinking is a very specific way of using the whole self to integrate how we're thinking with what's going on in the body in the context of getting curious about easing or flow in the body. So this is very important for musicians to learn. It's an incredible skill to learn how to do constructive thinking and how to eventually, with practice and the specific ways that I teach musicians step by step, we learn how to bring constructive thinking into our actual music making so that we can do it while we're actually playing the instrument and moving the body around. TheCyCle is more meditative. It's the very first step before you start introducing movement with Primal Alexander. But we are approaching what we're doing with as much awareness of the whole of ourselves as we can muster. So the form of constructive thinking that we're going to use now in doing TheCyCle is a very specific question with a very specific way of asking it. First, the question, and it's very important to write this down or to somehow memorize it so that you're sure to not substitute other words. 9 times out of 10 or 99 out of 100 times when I teach this to people, they think they have the right words, but it turns out they've actually substituted other words. I'm not going to go into why these specific words are so important, but they have been tested out with many, many people over quite a while, years. And this specific formulation of constructive thinking has been found to be the most effective, most quick and easy way for new people to be introduced to Primal Alexander. So the specific question we're going to be asking is, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? All right, so those are the words we're going to use in TheCyCle. And by the way, there are so many more awareness etudes that come after TheCyCle, which I teach my students. And we use that form of constructive thinking in all of those etudes in the beginning as well. So now you have the question. The most important thing is how you ask the question. We're going to be asking this question in a carefree manner without needing an answer to the question. So you're asking, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? But the attitude is really just a lighthearted, carefree curiosity. You're sort of curious about what's going on inside of yourself, but you ask the question and let it go. You don't actually try to find where the easing is in your body. You have to kind of not really care. We're so used to asking questions and expecting answers from ourselves as well as other people. We've been trained that way. We've been brought up that way since the time we were very small. We were asked questions and we were expected to answer. Think about school, for example. Well, this is different. We're going to wake up our curiosity. It's like turning on a switch in your brain where you actually get curious, but then you let it go. So I suggest that you ask this question in a way that allows you to kind of throw the question up and out there. Literally, spatially, up and out. But it's just an idea. As soon as you let go of the question, it's gone. All right? So we're going to use that way of asking, that carefree quality of curiosity. And we're taking the whole of ourselves into consideration. So here's how we do it practically. We're going to be cycling through all 10 fingers, one at a time. We're going to start with a thumb, and we're going to hold the thumb really softly, gently, and no squeezing or twisting. It's just very soft. And you're going to, it's like you're holding a little bird, really gentle. And then you're going to rest your hands in your lap or on the table in front of you, whatever's most comfortable for you, so that you require no energy, no effort to hold up your hands or your arms. You're really just letting them rest as much as possible. Okay. Now on each finger, I'm going to count to 4. After each number, we're going to ask this question: where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Otherwise known as constructive thinking. We're going to ask it in the way that I suggested, and then we're going to move on and ask it again after the next number. When you're first learning to do the cycle by yourself, it can be helpful to say the numbers out loud. And some people even like to ask the question out loud. But that's really just to learn it. And once you know the question and it's coming to you easily, you really want to ask the question mentally. I mean, imagine asking a question out loud while you're trying to play your instrument. And actually, when you get to the point of being able to integrate constructive thinking into playing your instrument, at that point, you're not even using words. It's a function of the brain that happens with lightning speed, that this is just the first step towards. Okay? So I'm going to actually ask the question out loud for both of us, for all of us, anybody watching here. And so you're going to get that repetition for a while, for a few fingers at least. And then I'm going to slowly taper off, and I'll be asking a shortened version, like where else? You fill in the rest of the question mentally or out loud if you find that helpful. Okay? Then I'll ask where, and then I'll just be quiet, and you can generate the question for yourself mentally or out loud. When you're doing it by yourself, you don't need to say the numbers out loud. If I didn't make that really clear, I want to make it clear that you can say the numbers out loud and ask the question mentally, or you can just do the whole thing mentally. But really in the beginning, a lot of people find it useful to say at least the numbers out loud, because it helps you to have really, clear thinking. And that's something we're learning with Primal Alexander and the Art of Freedom method. We're learning to be really clear in our thinking, very present to our thoughts and our bodies and our whole systems. And this is the entry point to that, the cycle. So let's go ahead and do it. So get curious to find out whatever happens. Now, if you do start to notice anything happening in your body, great. But then immediately go on and ask the question in this manner that's sort of tossing it up and out there. Your body might start to show some discomfort or some pain, or it might start to release, and you might start to feel relaxed or calm or sleepy. Those are all common. Whatever you're noticing is perfect. This is not about trying to relax. It truly isn't. The whole point of doing the Primal Alexander Awareness Etudes is truly just to find out what happens to you when you do them. And that's another big topic for another time. But suffice it to say that whatever you notice in your body, just notice it. Try not to judge it either way as, oh, this is not good, or, oh, this feels amazing. You know, if it feels amazing, lovely. But we just want to keep asking the question and move through each finger. I'm going to do all 10 fingers. I might pause after the first hand to give you a little more instruction. We'll see. All right, so you want to be holding your thumb like this. And I might be lifting my hands. You might see me, you know, just to show you what I'm doing in the beginning. That doesn't mean you need to lift up your hands. That's not what that's about. This is just me teaching you. Just rest your hands and leave them there in your lap or, you know, wherever they are with no effort. Okay. So here we go. On the thumb. 1, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 2, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 3, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 4, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Good. Moving on to the index finger, holding very softly and gently. The arms are resting. 1, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 2, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 3, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 4, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Middle finger. Keep your eyes open, by the way. Very important. I'm not going to say why right now, but keep your eyes open and let your eyes be free so that they don't get stuck staring anywhere unless they're just really relaxed in one place. That's okay. So middle finger. 1, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 2, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 3, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 4, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Ring finger. 1, where else do I see? 2, where else? 3, where else? 4, where else? Pinky. 1, where else do I seem to be? 2, where else? 3, where else? 4. Okay, good. We're going to go on to the second hand. Before I do that, I want to introduce a little concept, which is actually a big concept, but I'll just introduce it briefly. We can think with varying degrees of intensity. Just think about what happens when you concentrate or you're working really hard and you're focusing on something. You know, think about Rodin's sculpture of the thinker, right? That kind of intense concentration, even if you're like really into it and it feels like you're doing a good job, that increases overall tension. The tension in the mind, that narrowing of focus, is reflected by the body. We don't want that. We want to cultivate a different way of concentrating, which is actually effortless, so that we can bring our full presence and centered focus to what we're doing, but in a way that's so easy that the whole body, mind, self can be light and free and resilient and responsive and ready for anything. So here's how we're going to practice that. I just want you to have this idea that you can lower the volume or lower the intensity of how you are thinking this question, how you're doing the constructive thinking. So instead of concentrating on it, don't concentrate. Remember, I talked about a very light, carefree way of asking this question and throwing it up and out of you. It's including all of you, but then you let it go. As soon as you've asked the question, you let it go. And you ask the question in a manner that's almost like a little whisper of a question. Okay? So you're going to be lowering the intensity of how you ask that question. We have something called the backwards cycle, where we count backwards from 4 to 1 to consciously remember to lower the intensity levels of how we're thinking. We're not going to do that right now, but you can do that, just saying. We want to actually stick with the same format of doing the cycle through all 10 fingers. So we've done the first 5, counting 1 to 4. Now we're going to do the other hand, the next 5 fingers counting from 1 to 4 on each finger. But have this idea that you don't have to concentrate. You just have a whisper of a thought and you let it go. You might even answer that question with, gosh, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? I don't know. Who cares? Let's not care. Okay. So second hand, thumb. Getting curious. 1, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? I don't know. Who cares? 2, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? I don't know. 3, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Interesting. 4, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? Whatever you're feeling is fine, but come back to the constructive thinking and throw it up and out. Number 1. 4 finger. 1, where else do I seem to be easing a bit? 2, where else? 3, where else? 4. Good. Middle finger. 1, where else? 2, eyes open. 3, where else? 4. Good. Ring finger. 1, where else? 2, where? 3, 4. Last but not least, we have the pinky. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. So that's part 1 of the cycle. Part 2 is more advanced, and I only teach that to my students who've been learning the etudes for a little while, and they know more of the etudes. The cycle part 2 comes quite a bit later. But this is the basic version. This is what I teach all of my students in the beginning. So play around with this. It's really actually quite quick. When you're first learning it, like this video took longer, right? But I'm teaching it, right? So when you first learn it, you might want to take a little more time just to make sure you're asking the question, the complete question, and you're giving yourself that time. But don't try to feel anything. If you don't feel anything at all, so what? If you feel that parts of your body are releasing, great, but move on. Don't hang around trying to feel stuff in your body. That's really important. Okay, very important. And again, keep your eyes open. There are a lot of reasons for that, but just really quickly, obviously, you know, when we close our eyes, we tend to go inward and we kind of shut out the world. We also tend to do that when we're going to sleep. So we want to actually learn how to be integrating our inner experience with the outer world so that we can be really present and engaged in the world, but without reacting, or, you know, you can react, but noticing, you know, being really present to your own experience and what's going on around you. If you're a musician and you want to be playing with other musicians or with a conductor or playing for an audience, you want to be able to be connected with those people and to be able to respond in the moment. So you want to be open and free and with minimal tension in your system and able to take in what's going on in the environment also. So like I said in the beginning, this practice is meditative. You might call it meditation. There are so many different ways to meditate, but I find that it's if you want to think of it as meditation, think of it as something really different. It's probably quite unlike any other meditation you may have done in the past because of this unified field of attention that we're cultivating. The unified field of attention are words that were coined by someone named Frank Pierce Jones, who, was a student of FM Alexander's way back. And it's a really, really great term, unified field of attention. That's what we're cultivating with all the awareness etudes, with all of Primal Alexander, and with the Art of Freedom method. So you want to keep your eyes and yourself open to what's on the inside and the outside so that ultimately it becomes one unified experience. There's so much more I could say about TheCyCle and what we're doing and why we do this. Please ask me your questions. I'm easy to find. If you found this video, you know how to reach me. Please, if you have any questions at all, reach out to me and ask them. I'd rather answer your questions soon so that if you are veering off into a direction that's not that helpful, I want to be able to, help you be on track and really make the most of this really incredible practice. TheCyCle is so simple, but the words are important, and the way you ask the words is essential. So have fun with this. Ask me if you want to know more, and I'll see you next time. Enjoy. Bye.